Iris Angelis joins us in Australia right now. She's in our virtual green room, and she has written a game-changing book. Seriously, this title pretty much says it all. Passion to Thrive. Reclaim your life's potential, purpose, passion, and power. Who doesn't want that? Iris, thanks so much for coming on.
It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
I do really honestly love the way you laid out that title, because that does say it all. What led you to writing this book?
What led me to, well, the inspiration I got was I read a couple of pages by somebody else on these themes that I'm talking about. And then it was like this insight and knowledge just spontaneously dropped in, and it would not let me go until I started writing it. So I started writing these things down, and then the next lot of information would come in and would write that down. And what it made me realize was that women in particular have all these ways they can be and move in the world that we just don't access. It's there, but we just don't access it. And the inspiration behind the interviews in my book, so I've interviewed 7 women on different themes that are woven all through the book, came from me telling somebody I know and love very dearly that I was writing this book. And she said, well, if you need somebody to interview, I'll be happy to be interviewed by you for it. So the richness of the book comes from these 7 women who have shared their stories so authentically as well.
What was the biggest surprise in pulling all this content together, research, interviews? What was the biggest surprise for you?
The biggest surprise for me, I think, was finding that I myself had all these gifts and access to all these different energies and way of being in the world that I hadn't ever really been aware of in this way before. So I guess like most people, I sort of had a way of doing things that I thought was working for me. But in actually writing this book, all of a sudden I realized that there was so much more that I could explore in my own life.
So you write the book, and as I said, the title, you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever great books are sold. Passion to Thrive, Reclaim Your Life's Potential, Purpose, Passion, and Power. You write the book, and it's got a lot of these tidbits that we talked about that are so important. And I feel like let's give the people that are listening, before they run out and buy your book, let's give them a little taste of what they can expect. What can people do right now to move the needle, so to speak, on what's happening in their world?
What I encourage people to do is to approach life not as a fixed thing, but as something that's really malleable and something they can play with. Let's get more play into the world, right? We're all so serious all the time. So just start by changing little things in your life, change to a different type of tea in the morning, or start wearing a color clothes that you haven't worn before. Start exploring doing something that you thought, oh, I might want to do that one day, but you just haven't given yourself permission. It's in those tiny little incremental changes that we find that change doesn't have to be scary, and it might even be fun. And, if you don't like it, just do something else. And in doing so, we're empowering ourselves to play more and be in the world in different ways from what we have been so far. And there's a real magic that lies in that incremental change. And when you can do little change, then you can do bigger change. And all of a sudden, you're living a life that is amazing. And it probably very different from what you thought it would look like. But who cares if you're really, really feeling a lot of joy with it?
Oh, I so agree with that. So for you, what's been the biggest change that's happened to you after writing this book?
The change in me was that I've gone from being somebody who was in the world in a very masculine way, so very driven, striving, focused, organized, on time, really strict and disciplined with myself, to giving myself permission to be more. So be more creative, just allow the creativity to flow and just do it purely because it gives me joy and pleasure and fills me up. Give myself permission to rest more, because I'm so much better when I'm rested, right? To show up for the rest of my life. give myself permission to just spend time with my girlfriends because it nurtures me and they delight me. And sometimes they say yes, something is like, oh, that was exactly the piece I needed, to kind of step further forward into whatever it is I was stuck with. So I've moved from a space of like doing the entire time into a space of where I can allow myself to just be and draw the nurture from that. And then the doing becomes informed by the being. So it's much more in alignment with who I am and what I feel like I'm meant to be doing in the world.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's powerful. When people read the book, what do you hope their takeaways are from reading the book?
I hope the takeaway is that, that everybody knows that they have choice in how they show up in the world, right? We were all taught stuff as we were growing up. And that might have been what we needed to know at the time, but it's not the be all and end all, right? We've got taught certain things, but there are other ways of being in the world, like look at somebody who's achieved or done something that you really admire and maybe copy some of what they do. You don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Just go, oh, well, guess what? They meditate for 5 minutes a day. Maybe I'll do that, or whatever it is. And the second thing is for people to realize that they themselves carry a unique frequency and a way of experiencing the world that is absolutely irreplaceable and irreproducible. So to find how to be that frequency and how to offer their particular gift to the world, because to me, that is how we can live the lives that are the most fulfilling, the most meaningful, the most authentic, not necessarily the easiest. But then if you compromise on your soul, then that's not a nice life to live. So how you can be in the most alignment with your soul.
Oh, yeah. Again, the title, Passion to Thrive, Reclaim Your Life's Potential, Purpose, Passion, and Power. Do you think that's what happens? People have this potential and somehow it gets doused, or other people sort of pull them away from it or tell them they can't do it, and they listen too much to people that might be well-meaning, that are close to them in their lives. But I think it's like crabs. They try to pull you down if you start to get an edge. Do you think that happens to a lot of people?
Oh, absolutely. Like basically there are two ways we can show up in the world. Like one is coming from fear, which is the predominant way of being. Oh, don't do this because it could go wrong. Or, oh, this other person I know did that. And, this is the terrible thing that happened to them. But if we can drop into our heart and come from a place of love, and that's love for ourselves and love for everybody else as well, our heart will tell us what we can do. And it might not be easy, but it's always going to be the most rewarding and the most authentic. And ultimately, if you look at it at the end of your life, are you going to regret not doing what it was your heart was passionate about? Or are you going to regret, oh, I wish I'd spent another day at the office? Like if you look at it from the perspective of the end of your life, what do you want your life to have been like? It makes it a very simple choice, really.
Yeah, as to what direction you're going to go into. I know that you're working on another book, and you don't certainly have to tell us a lot of details, but I think it's exciting. So give us kind of a glimpse into that as well.
So the first book is mostly about for women and how for them to reclaim and step into their power, passion, purpose, and potential. The second one is about how to weave the divine masculine and the divine feminine into our lives. So if we can have a balanced internal masculine and feminine, it means that at any given point in time, we have access to the different ways those two energies are in the world. And that means that we can kind of have economy of movement. So we can do the one thing that will basically get us to where our heart desires us to go. The most easily and the most readily. There's a lot more to it than that, but that was the original kernel of the image I got in my mind was, the yin yang symbol.
Sure.
I saw the yin yang symbol as a sphere and kind of living right in the middle of the sphere. So there's access to whatever you need at any given point in time.
Yeah, well, that sounds good too. And again, certainly roads lead to Passion to Thrive, Reclaim Your Life's Potential, Purpose, Passion, and Power. You can get that again, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Iris, thanks so much for coming on.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much, Kate.